All right, guys. This is Brock Glidwell and Jason Bekemeier with Pearson-Kelly. We're coming to talk to you guys today briefly about three key skills that we feel all IT leadership positions and leaders in IT should have. So we're briefly just going to identify each skill that we feel is important and weigh in on it and go on to the next one. So I'm going to go right on into it and talk about the first skill that we feel is extremely important, and that is decisiveness. In IT, we have to kind of jump in. A lot of times things come up fast. Most of the time we don't plan for things to break. So being able to kind of go ahead and make decisions on the fly and be confident with those decisions. A lot of that comes with time. Jason, I know you spend a lot of time, in various levels of support and engineering. So, talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, when you get that call that something's down, something's broke, they usually don't really know what's broken about it. So it's there's a lot of quick troubleshooting and decision making that go in. Do you send somebody on site? Can we do this remote? So it's that, when you talk about decisiveness, it's you need to just kind of make up your mind and move a direction.
Yep.
And what's best going to to protect the client for one. But two is that we try to be remote as much as we can, and usually on bigger issues, it's pretty important to the client that somebody comes on site. So that's a decision that's made quite a bit, but it's that quick decision making. One, to try to help your chances in getting the issue resolved, and two, to get the client's confidence in you that they're going to feel good if somebody's there on site, hands on. That may be old school thinking in our industry
Yep.
anymore, but it's still relative to the client.
Absolutely.
So that's what we have to do as leaders is make the client feel good for one, and do our best to get the issue resolved. Kind of second actually,
Yeah.
because we want to make them feel good, right?
And right along in there in that decision making is communicating that, because a lot of times we make decisions and work is happening, making sure that our clients, our end users, understand that work is happening.
Absolutely.
Cool. The second thing we're going to talk about, you're going to touch on, is relationship building.
Yep, relationship building is it's a huge one, and as a leader, you have to do your part to help develop that in your team. During COVID, one thing that we did that just, it was priceless, was our morning calls.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a little bit of an agenda in our morning call, and we would talk about work a little, but there'd be mornings that we wouldn't talk about work at all. And we're all remote, working from home. It's that situation that everybody's always, hey, I want to work from home, but after a few weeks of that, it's not a whole lot of fun anymore. And keeping the team together and communicating, and not to be sick of just being on these calls together all the time, was pretty important. And we would have meetings that we didn't talk about work at all. One of the best meetings we had, we talked, of course, we're all technicians. We talked about video gaming,
Mm-hmm.
what their favorite video game was, and the technology behind the video game. And our meetings were scheduled for 30 minutes. Well, that meeting went over an hour. And wow, you talk about some bonding. The whole team. I'm not much of a video gamer, but all the techs. It was some intense discussion, and that kind of stuff is important. And when you can kind of pull that out of the guys as a leader, and girls, it helps to find that common ground, between all your team members, and that's priceless when you can do stuff like that.
Yeah, it can be, IT support and service can be a pretty lonely place. You can feel siloed pretty easily, like we've talked about in other videos, only hearing about problems. So anytime you can build that team mentality and give everybody that sense of belonging to something bigger than just fixing the next problem, I think it's super important. So the last thing we wanted to talk about was problem solving. It kind of goes a little bit with the decisiveness. But this is that just kind of general troubleshooting. I think you kind of alluded to it earlier, but sometimes the problem that's communicated is not the problem that's actually there. So it's being able to decipher the language that we get. We have people that talk to us with all different types of levels of IT experience and IT knowledge, some with tons, some with none, and being able to kind of translate that into figuring out exactly what the problem is, and then taking the necessary steps. I think that's probably one of the most important things that an IT leader can do and instill in their team is sift through, the jargon, sift through the words you get, find the actual root cause of the problem, address it, and then let everybody know what you did.
Yeah, exactly. Because so many times we hear from the end user that, hey, we have this as a problem. Well, we as technicians, I mean, that problem we know probably is going to start downstream somewhere. For instance, we had a huge Wi-Fi issue at a client, and our Wi-Fi is not working. Do we need new access points? Are they dead? Well, it ended up being a switch problem. So it's deciphering that and knowing where to go first, to minimize that downtime, because that's what you're trying to do. You'll eventually find the problem.
Yeah.
It's just how fast you can get there and make that client feel comfortable, and like you said earlier, the communicating to kind of what we're doing and stuff, and that problem solving really comes into play over time, because you have to learn where issues usually start, and you take that knowledge and just kind of put it into action.